Just a heads up that in this episode, we will be discussing a few stories that have some distressing elements, including ones about self-harm. Just wanted you to know before you dove in.
On this episode of the Haunted Objects Podcast.
Are you dying?
Oh, yeah.
You don't think you have a fever, do you? Mm-mm. I'm just going to bathe in this shit.
98.2. I'm good.
Oh, good. Okay. I can take this mask off.
Yep. Greg and I have retreated to the dungeons, to the studio, to avoid the illness that is spreading across the land in this house.
The basement office is really the safest place in this whole building.
Yeah, we could probably survive a zombie apocalypse in here.
I mean, this is where we go when there's tornadoes in Ohio.
Yep.
It's where we go when our producer is turning into a zombie.
He's probably upstairs slowly becoming a werewolf or a zombie.
We had
or a werezomb.
We had a banger of an episode ready to go, and then last night Connor got sick. So instead of doing our typical podcast, Dana and I thought we would have a special Infected edition,
ghost stories,
where we're just going to tell you some ghost stories that we normally don't have the opportunity to tell because they aren't necessarily tied to an object, a haunted object.
Yes.
But they are true stories from our history as ghost hunters. We've been doing this 30-some years now, and we've got some pretty crazy stories that we want to tell you, including one about how a haunted object saved our lives. So, turn the lights down low.
Yeah. Get a burrito. Maybe an emergency.
Curl up. Douse yourself in some hand sanitizer. And let's tell some ghost stories, friends.
From deep inside the mysterious archives of the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal, it's the Haunted Objects Podcast.
Dana, how do you feel about the classic ghost story?
I love the classic ghost story. The thing that's funny that people don't, they're always surprised by this. After all of the years that we've done this and all of the years that we've spent investigating weird things and going with weird people and doing things, I'm still scared as shit of ghosts. I'm so afraid of ghosts. Like the idea of a ghost.
Sure.
I'm so afraid of that.
Well, I mean, it's not something you can explain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think things like that are naturally spooky to us. Yeah. I think anyone who tells you that they're not scared of ghosts, even if they're like ghost hunter types, I think they're pulling your leg.
Yeah, they're full of poo.
Because we've been doing this how long now?
Like a long time.
Like 30, you almost said 30-some years. I think 30 plus years.
Yeah. I started ghost hunting in 2001, to give you an idea.
I started in 99.
Yeah.
We were kids.
It was a long time
We
ago.
were children.
We were infants.
Yeah, well, some people will claim. That's one of our favorite stories that goes on. I had an experience when I was in the crib, and that's what set me on this lifelong journey. Mm-hmm. We don't really have that.
No.
We were both just weird kids interested in weird shit.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some of that weird shit today.
Yeah, let's do it. Dana,
do you want to kick things off? Because we were talking about what stories we wanted to tell today. And you reminded me of one that blew my mind when it happened. Mm-hmm. This one involves both of us. This one still freaks me out the more I think about it today. And you know what? To be very honest with you, I think this is what really got me going down a different path when I thought about ghosts.
I think it actually might be the situation that caused both of us to have a very different perspective about what a haunting is, what a ghost is, all of that kind of stuff.
We definitely changed our tune a little bit, and it's funny. I don't look at ghosts the same way anymore.
No.
Very largely because of what happened.
I agree.
On this particular evening.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I love about this story also is I think that it is one that has, over time, become more impressed upon me. Like when it initially happened, I was like, "Oh, that's weird." But as the years have gone by, I think that I have context for how strange this experience was, and how, like you said, why it's become the one that really did sort of help shape my brain and your brain when it comes to thinking about what ghosts are. This story begins on Mackinac Island, which is an island off of the coast of Michigan, the coast.
The coast.
Listen,
I guess.
Come on this journey with me. You're ruining my story.
I'm sorry.
Off the coast of Michigan.
We used to go there all the time, like at least once a year for paranormal conferences.
Yeah.
And you have to take a ferry to get there.
Yeah.
One of the crazy things about Mackinac Island is there are no cars allowed. The only cars that are allowed are emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
So this place they're basically trying to keep it like it was in the 1800s.
Yes. The only thing that is allowed on the island, there are cars, but they're for emergency services and they're tucked away and you'll literally never see them. But the only thing that you'll experience on the island are horse-drawn carriages and lots of people riding bikes, which is basically it. That's your only form of transportation. You can take one of the horse carriages or you can ride a bike.
It's really cool. I would highly recommend going to visit at some point. You can walk around the entire island.
It's very spooky.
Lots of cool old legends in this place. If you are a fan of old classic films, there was a movie called Somewhere in Time starring Christopher Reeve. That was shot up there at one of the resorts.
Yeah, I think it was at Mission Point.
Yeah, you're right, because there's that story in one of the big auditoriums.
Yeah, they had a scene that they filmed there, and one of the crew members described being pushed over the railings.
Over the catwalk.
Yeah, and I think he like broke a rib or something like it was. It wasn't a joke. Like he had to go to the hospital and all that good stuff.
We're usually stuck in that room when we're leading ghost hunts for an event there, and we've experienced a lot of weird stuff in that place.
It's a strange room. It's weird because when you walk into it, it literally just looks like a convention hall. Like it doesn't feel like there's anything going on there. And then you spend any period of time in that room, and you're like, it's really scary in here.
Mission Point Resort. All the resorts there, they close down in the winter. So the whole island shuts down in the winter. I think Ghost Hunters did an episode there a long time ago where a bunch of people got stranded.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of the cast members who were afraid to fly, so they wouldn't take flights off. It got really hairy, and what you have to do is you have to use you use a snowmobile.
Yeah.
Once the lake freezes over.
Yeah.
And that's how you get back and forth. So the only people that are on the island there are people who decide to hunker down and stay there and live there for the winter.
Yeah.
And do the horses stay there?
I think that the horses, I think they might leave actually.
I think they might leave too.
They're done their job in the summer, so they get to spend the winter drinking pina coladas. Horse
for them.
Pina coladas.
They deserve it. They work very hard on that island.
The other detail about Mackinac Island is it's not like... Initially, you might imagine that it's like an island that you can see from the shore. It's pretty out there. So it's like a 20-minute ferry ride to get there. It's
some
pretty
rough
choppy
ferry rides
water.
we've had too.
Yeah, yeah.
And the funniest part is when we would go, we would have a giant old like wooden chest from the 1800s filled with haunted objects because we would do the museum over there.
Exactly. Imagine carrying all of these objects to an island that has no vehicles allowed on it. So you have to figure out how to get all of this stuff. And Mission Point, I think, is one of the furthest to get to. It's like all the way on the other side of the island. So it's a haul from the ferry port all the way up to the hotel.
I hope this is setting the stage for everybody because this place is really cool, but it's very spooky. There's lots of legends about this place and some of the things that have happened there.
Super old hotels. There's a fort there. There's a lot of like very strange ghost stories attached to a lot of the buildings. They're pretty old buildings too, I think.
Yeah. Typically, when we're hired to help at an event, we are there with the museum, we'll give a lecture, but one of the things that we're often doing is people have us host ghost hunts.
Sure. So usually the way that it works is there's a handful of people who are guiding the investigations, and each one of them are sort of posted up at a location, and they stay in the same spot all night long. And the groups are split up into smaller groups, and then you rotate. So you go from one spot to the next, to the next, to the next. So normally what ends up happening is for people like us, we're sort of stuck in the same spot all night long, which isn't a bad thing.
No. It gives you a chance to see how different groups affect different places differently. And there's always, somebody, it seems like there's always like one person or there's certain groups of people that have wildly different experiences.
Always. Yeah, absolutely. So, the teams will rotate. It's kind of nice for the investigators because they get the opportunity to see a bunch of different people's investigation styles, but also they get to, like you said, see all of the corners of these places, and they're not, just in one place. You get the kind of full experience.
Yeah.
So, Mackinac Island, we're in Mission Point, which is, again, as we mentioned, a pretty haunted building. There's lots of folklore associated with the area. There's a lot of ghost stories that have been attributed to a lot of the rooms in the buildings. And the room that we were investigating was a room that's called Harvey's room. And I think it's actually one of the more requested suites in the hotel. People really want to stay there because it's really, the story is that it's very haunted. It's
funny you mentioning that. I believe that room was featured prominently on that episode of Ghost Hunters. Sure. And I think that they had all kinds of weird stuff like lights turning on and off and stuff like that in there. So that room is relatively famous in ghost hunting circles.
Yeah, people are always trying to rent it. They want to spend the night there because it's the most haunted room at Mission Point. So the story goes, Harvey was a man who lived in this room when it was a dormitory. So he was a student, according to the folklore, according to the story.
Right.
Harvey was a student who stayed at this place, stayed at Mission Point when it was a dormitory, and he fell in love with someone. And unfortunately, that love was not returned. And Harvey, according to the story, falls into a great depression, like a deep depression, and it's just really depressed for long periods of time.
Doesn't leave his room.
No.
Just sits in there, doesn't answer the door, stops taking care of himself.
Yeah. Everything that you would think would be associated with like young unrequited love, just heartbroken, depressed, doesn't want to go on. And so Harvey keeps, he sort of lives with this depression, the sadness for a period of time, and eventually he takes his own life. That's according to the story, takes his own life. And people since then have had experiences in this room that was supposed to be Harvey's room, where he stayed, and obviously stayed during the time when he was incredibly depressed. He was in this room. So people have a lot of strange experiences in this room.
And this room is a hotel room now.
It is it's a suite.
You can rent, it's a hotel suite. You can rent this suite out.
Yeah.
And plenty of people who've stayed there.
Lots of people have
had very weird experiences.
I'm sure that you can ask anyone who works at the hotel, and they'll probably have lots of stories to tell you about the strange experiences, from lights turning on to movement.
or they refuse to talk about it.
Or they won't talk about it.
Because a lot of them did not like the ghost story aspect.
No, they didn't.
Because they're like seasonal hires.
Yes.
And they used to give, they hated us because we would bring this chest in.
The chest.
And we would have them hold it in the back room, and nobody ever wanted to touch it. They would make us come back and pick the chest up and move it.
We had to, we were the only ones that would touch it because no one else would touch it.
Still felt bad, so we still tipped them.
Yeah.
Even though we were doing all the work.
It's true. I mean, it is like 100-pound chest with a bunch of haunted objects in it. So it's like, bro, the weirdest things that they probably have ever had to move.
Well, the funniest one is one of the times they're pulling it off of one of the ferries.
Oh, God.
And the one guy goes, "What do you got in here? Gold bars?" And I was like, "Cursed objects." And he laughed. And I was like, "No, they're cursed objects in there." And he dropped it. And he's like, "You're carrying it yourself."
Yeah, he was like, "I'm out. I'm not doing that." So Harvey's room is this room that you can rent it if you want. But a lot of people have had experiences with something in this room, and that's the folklore, that's the story that's attached to it. It's changed over the years. There's details that are different. It's a good ghost story because it's one of those things that sort of is a living story. It takes on new kind of changes. Exactly. So we were in that room the very first time that we stayed at Mackinac Island, that we were investigating that room with groups of people. And we had, again, spent the entire night in this room specifically. So you can imagine like 5 groups of people, 20 people, 25 people have come in.
It's a tight squeeze.
It's a tight squeeze. We do a 45-minute to an hour-long kind of mini investigation, just seeing if we can capture anything. And mostly it's just exciting to get to, be inside of some of these buildings. Historically, it's very cool.
Typically, these things last, it's like anywhere from like 7 to 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we're in these rooms for quite a while.
Yeah, the hosts are definitely, spending long periods of time in these rooms. And Greg and I were in this room together. We're very lucky because we always get to entertain each other and we're together.
Yeah.
So we had spent the whole night in this room, and I thought it was cool. It's a neat room. It has a lot of interesting folklore attached to it. It's a fun thing to kind of get to experience. And I love a ghost story. I love ghosts. I love them so much. And I love ghost stories. So I was really excited. And so we spent the whole night, groups and groups of people coming in and out. And the final group, it's really late at night. The final group comes in. Everyone comes in, sits down. We start doing some EVP sessions. We're trying to capture potential spirit voices, all sorts of different kinds of things. And about 35 minutes, 40 minutes into the final investigation, I'm standing at the front of the room near the bathroom with my back against the wall. And I start to notice out of nowhere this intense smell. Like it was... To describe this to you, I mean, like, imagine that you haven't bathed for 2 weeks and that you're like
it wouldn't be the first time we were smelling this at a conference.
I mean, it is a conference.
If you've ever been to a Comic-Con,
you get a little stinkers in there. It's okay.
It just happens. It's just you get a lot of people and not everyone has the same kind of hygiene. Yeah. And you just accept it. It's part of the gig.
So, but the weirdest part about this is this room is not really very big. And we've also been with this final group for like 40 minutes. And when this smell hit my face, I was like, how did I not smell this the whole 40 minutes? Because it was so overpowering. Like to describe this to you would be like if I was left on a desert island for like a month without any soap, that's what I would smell like. And that's what this smelled like. It was an overpowering smell. Yeah. And I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to be like, who stinks? Like I didn't want to do that to anybody.
Of course.
So I kind of just sort of kept it to myself.
You were being professional.
I was trying to be
You were
really
a professional.
Yeah. So I was trying to keep it to myself. I'm kind of standing in this area and there's a lady sort of standing next to me. And I noticed that she's kind of doing that thing that somebody does where she goes like...
Looking for... she smelt it. She's looking for who dealt it.
She did. And I was like, oh no, she's going to think it's me. I was so worried about it.
It's so funny.
And we kind of like... I could tell she was doing that thing with her nose where she was like, where is that smell coming from? And so you have to imagine the two of us are sort of standing next to each other. Everyone else is like... in it, they've got their recorders out, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Greg's literally leading people through this experience, and me and this lady are kind of like smelling this horrible smell. And we kind of do that thing where we make eye contact with each other. And I'm like, okay.
You're trying to say like, it wasn't me.
Yeah, we made a knowing, I think we both made a knowing eye contact at each other. Like we both smell that and we both want to acknowledge that it is neither me nor you.
Right. I think we can all relate to that.
Yes, exactly.
You're in an elevator and...
Yes, exactly. So we kind of looked at each other. We recognized, okay, well, yeah, it's happening, but, we're not going to be in here too much longer.
Yeah.
And so we weren't in there for too much longer. And one of the things that we did afterwards is we would kind of lead people back to the hotel because we were a bit out of the way. So we were walking with people and she kind of walks up next to me and we have like a moment where we have a bit of privacy to sort of start talking about this. And so she asks me, did you smell that smell? And I said, yeah, it's like overpowering body odor, like really stinky smell. And she was like, I smelled it too. And it just came out of nowhere. And she basically described back to me the experience that I had had.
Like a musky...
Like a stinky person. It was a smelly person smell. It wasn't like old furniture, like dampness. It was a stinky person smell.
Maybe like somebody who had been in a room for a very long time and wasn't taking very good care of their hygiene.
Exactly.
Somebody like Harvey, maybe.
Yes. And I think that if I remember correctly, she and I kind of discussed that the smell, we were like, wow, nobody else smelled it. And I think you were close by and I remember being like, nobody else smelled the smell. It was just us and no one else smelled it. And so we kept walking and she kind of turned to me just as we were getting ready to kind of go our separate ways. And she dropped this huge bomb on me.
I can't believe this.
And she said, what's really interesting is I don't have a sense of smell. I physically don't have a sense of smell. I can't remember the details. I'm pretty sure she had an accident or maybe it was a sickness when she was younger. But she was not capable of physically smelling things.
She made a joke, too, about how her husband makes her clean the litter boxes in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she can't smell.
So she couldn't.
And she forgot.
Yes.
For that moment. that she could not smell. She had no sense of smell.
Yeah. And so I thought in the moment, I was like, well, that's really weird. Like, what does that mean? Like, so she's physically not capable of smelling because of an injury at some point in time, but she just had an experience where a smell came to her.
That you also smelled, you verified,
yes.
Nobody else brought it up.
And I don't have a problem smelling anything.
Yeah, no.
I don't know.
Trust me. She smells them all.
I smell them all, okay?
She knows.
I'm very scent triggered, to be perfectly honest with you.
Do not fart around Dana.
Yeah. I'm the kind of person who, like, I'm definitely aware of that. So me being a person who can smell, her being someone who doesn't have the physical ability to smell, we kept thinking about this for years and years, because this happened in like 2018, I think, 17 possibly, even 16, I think. It's been that long.
Yeah.
And we thought about this, and we kept coming to the conclusion that obviously something is happening in the brain here.
Yes.
Something is happening in the brain to have caused a woman who has not have the physical ability to smell something to have a moment where she experiences a smell that she and I both smell that makes complete sense when we think about the story attached to the room, right? If Harvey was someone who languished in there, he was so sad, even if it's just according to the story, we tapped into for a second that moment.
One of the things that you often hear as a skeptical argument against the existence of ghosts is that, well, these experiences are all in your head. You know, you're just fooling yourself. And the thing is, we don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
they
that
are.
It is in your head.
Yeah.
I think that the mind is the mechanism by which these things are able to communicate with us.
Yes.
Even if the story wasn't even true to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, there are stories that are similar to this on that island. Nobody named Harvey was ever there. I've heard that they, one of the excuses is that, well, they changed the guy's name.
Yes.
So that
there's a lot
the
of
family's still around, things like that. Mm-hmm. But as with most ghost stories, the details aren't always exactly true.
No, they're mostly not true. That's the thing, especially in situations like this where you have, especially in a situation where you have television shows coming in and filming things, but then you also have people coming in and film and having experiences and filming things, and then the ghost stories start to change and they start to adapt and they become folklore. They become urban legends.
And then they become lodged in people's minds.
Yeah.
They're told on ghost tours on Mackinac Island.
And on
on television, on podcasts. And then people hear them and they know what to expect. And you know what? I really do think that stuff starts to happen.
Yeah.
And this woman not having a sense of smell, but smelling Harvey's ghost.
Like for her
and then forgetting, just because it was such a, if that woman had a sense of smell, we would have thought forever somebody in that room stunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody in that room just smelled.
We would have thought, oh, she and I maybe were the closest to that person, or like for whatever reason, we would have had lots of excuses to debunk our own experience.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. But the fact that she kind of threw in this amazing twist at the end, which is like, I'm physically not capable of smelling. It was something that we became so upset. We couldn't stop thinking about it.
I can't believe it.
Because it's a beautiful and simple example of how often paranormal experiences are way harder than anyone ever wants to believe that they are. They're not as simple as we think that they are. They're so much more complicated. And that's why Harvey, to me, and the experience that I got to have in that room, whether Harvey was someone that existed or not, I had a paranormal experience, and I had a paranormal experience with another person, and we could validate each other. And there was a weirder thing, which is that she's physically not capable of smelling. So the experience is fascinating to me. Paranormal smells have become a bit of an obsession because it's so strange, but it's one of my favorite stories. It's one that I hold very dear to my heart, and I think about Harvey a lot, and I think about that room a lot and that experience and how much it did send us down a very different path. It really, really did.
Everything that we've thought about ghosts from that point on
totally changed.
Has changed. And the really interesting thing is we're just finding more and more corroborating information about what ghosts may be. And I think that it's stuff that's readily available that more people could read about. But I think it challenges people's really hard set perceptions about the world and about the supernatural and things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it has to.
Yeah.
I think obviously something weird is going on there. It doesn't mean that you didn't have a real experience. It's just so much stranger than you think.
Yes.
Yeah. Guess what? It is in your head.
It is. You can literally say that to people the next time they try to say to you, oh, it's all in your head. You can be like, yeah, and it's in your head too. It's in all of our heads.
What if our experiences, just the experiences that we have, the books that we read, the music that we listen to, the sights that we see, are just a lexicon that allows the phenomena to replicate that, to show you what it wants to be, or how it wants to be interpreted, or to even give you some kind of an easily identifiable archetypal symbol.
Yeah.
And that's how it communicates with us. It has to use the library, the lexicon that you've built in your mind.
So build a big library.
Yeah, build a big library.
As big as you can build it. Build it with lots of different cultures, stories, and lots of different time periods, and build it with things that kind of scare you and all that good stuff. But that experience changed everything for, I think, both of us. And it's one of my all-time favorite ghost stories.
That's a really good one.
It's so good.
It's really where the origins of one of our most used catchphrases it comes from, which is your mind, your brain is a ghost machine.
It's a ghost machine. Make it a good ghost machine.
Make it a good ghost machine. That's what we talk about on the tour.
Yep.
By the way, tickets are selling out now.
Yeah, come and see us. It's almost spooky season.
It's almost spooky season.
Let us scare you.
The tour. You think these stories are good? Just wait. We're not spoiling the best ones because you're going to lose your shit when you see what we have planned. For this season's
it's going to be fun.
It kicks off on September 11th. And it runs until November 2nd, and we're going to be all over the country. So come see us, newkirktour.com for dates and locations, and we'll tell you even better ghost stories in person.
When the paranormal lurks in every shadow, and each mysterious artifact hides a ghostly tale, one show dares to uncover the truth. The Haunted Objects Podcast. Now you can wear the mystery. Introducing the official Haunted Objects merchandise. Hats, shirts, pins, and more. All designed by independent artists, manufactured by smaller businesses, and carrying the undeniable essence of the unexplained. Embrace the legend. Wear the mystery. Visit planetweird.store today.
Okay, I got one. I got a ghost story.
I want to hear it. I love ghost stories.
All right, we're going to go back to the year 2000 for mine.
Oh my God, how many people just heard the Conan thing? In the year 2000. I did.
My friends and I were obsessed with ghost hunting. We had a team. I've talked about it on here before. I've told some of our old ghost stories on here before. But we were in a team called Ghost Hunters Incorporated. Didn't know what Incorporated meant, but man, did it sound cool. Our version of ghost hunting was just what most kids do. You go hang out in the abandoned house at the edge of town. We grew up in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to do. You know, Troy, Pennsylvania has one stoplight still to this day.
Yeah.
I remember the day we got a cell phone tower.
Yeah. Do you remember when you guys got a McDonald's?
Oh, it was huge. It was a massive thing. I mean, literally the heads of the town tried to keep the McDonald's out.
Yeah.
When you're from a small rural town, sometimes people just leave their houses and they leave everything in them. It just happens all the time. There's abandoned houses everywhere. So most of the places that my friends and I ended up ghost hunting were just these abandoned houses that were full. Like the fridges still had like rotten food from the 50s in them.
I can attest to this. You've brought me around, obviously been to Troy many times, but you've brought me kind of out to some of these places, and literally some of these houses are, first of all, they're beautiful houses, but they are completely falling apart. But they are filled with furniture, and most of them have holes in the floor that the furniture are falling through. Like literally, antiques that people just like left behind.
They're just left to rot.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't know if that's more, I mean, I grew up in the country, so I don't know if that's a common thing in the city.
I always do say, though, that Greg did grow up in Sunnydale.
Oh, the stories that I have.
Troy is basically Sunnydale.
It's crazy. We thought the mayor was in a cult for the longest time. We used to
probably was.
We used to track him.
Yeah.
We used to pretend that we were private detectives going to see the mayor go to a cult meeting or something.
Yeah. Any Buffy fans out there, just know that Greg literally grew up over the Hellmouth.
It felt like that sometimes. But at least we had something to do because there was nothing to do where I grew up. And so we just started ghost hunting. We were really big fans. We listened to Art Bell at night. We read all of the, Ed and Lorraine books, and we're really obsessed with ghosts. And so every night, whether it was the summer or whether it was like a school weekend, we would tell our parents we were staying at each other's houses, and we would meet up with our friend Jason Gowan, who's been on the show. You guys have seen him in stuff like The Unbinding and Hellier. Because Gowan was a couple years older than us. We knew him because of our friend's older sister. And he watched Buffy like we watched Buffy. And so we got along. He would offer, he's like, hey, I'll drive if you guys want to go ghost hunting. And so we would, I'm sure it was very funny watching him pull up next to a field and then like honk his horn and then a bunch of teenagers just pop up out of the field and go running towards the car.
Out of a cornfield?
Out of a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. That's scary in and of itself.
It is a terrifying idea.
Well, we had heard this, we'd heard about this place called Eastep Manor. And this thing was like way out in the middle of nowhere. It was part of some farm. It had been abandoned for a very long time. But the legend around Eastep Manor was that there was a farmer named Lester Eastep, and his farm was about to be repossessed.
Lester's such a great name.
Right?
Oh
That's a cool old ghost story name.
It's a great ghost story name.
So Lester Eastep, the farmer, is trying to figure out how in the world he's going to take care of his family. His farm is going to get repossessed. It's going to be taken away. The bills are piling up. What is he going to do? And he eventually reaches a breaking point and decides, I'm just going to put my family out of their misery, and then I'm going to take my own life.
Oh, my God.
And according to the legend, that's what he did.
Oh, no.
And the apparently some other farmer or something saw him swinging from a tree.
Oh, my God.
After that. And nobody had touched the house since then.
So everything just sat.
So everything just sat there.
Because there was no one to...
There was no one there.
Yeah.
We're like, we got to go check out Eastep Manor.
Yeah, you gotta.
So we get there. This place looks incredible. It's got to be like 1 a.m. That's usually when we get to these places.
You guys should have called yourself the Cornfield Boys.
The
Cornfield Boys are here to solve the case of Lester Eastep and his ghosts.
You know what's funny? We heard this story. The Cornfield Boys heard this story.
Can we get some Cornfield Boys merch
Cornfield
in this
Boys.
joint?
The Cornfield Boys, we heard this story from a substitute teacher, if I remember correctly, who was like
so
talking
great.
about it. Yeah. Who
Just
knew
someone
that we were
who
like
knew.
into stuff.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
you know what's funny? For all we knew, he could have just been making the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Because what would we know?
I mean, he probably was.
We weren't like, we weren't looking for primary sources on these stories.
Yeah.
We were just looking for kicks. We were, hopped up on Mountain Dew and Slim Jims.
Mm-hmm. And episodes of Buffy.
And episodes of Buffy, which is all we were doing. I mean, we carried medieval weapons.
Yeah.
That's all we were doing. We just wanted to be real life.
We'll get Karl
Buffy squad.
Karl to put a picture in right now of the medieval weapons.
Yes, you can see exactly what we look like. We've talked about this on the show before. So we get there. I think our backpacks, we still had like geometry textbooks and stuff in our backpacks, along with all of our ghost hunting equipment, which at this time, you should know, this is before Ghost Hunters was on television. A lot of the stuff that you see today didn't exist. Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, none of that.
Yeah, this was like you said, the very early 2000s.
So our EMF meter was just a regular
compass?
Magnetic compass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
we had one of those too.
Here's a tip. If you don't want to pay for an EMF meter, you can take a regular compass and you can just set it down and look for fluctuations because it's measuring the same thing. It'll move. Mm-hmm. So we had like that type of thing. I had like an old tape cassette recorder for EVPs. Mm-hmm. I think my dad used to use it to record his sermons.
Yeah, we had a micro cassette recorder.
Yeah.
One of those little ones.
Yeah, you still have it.
Yeah, it's over there.
Yeah. So we find this place incredible. We go inside. We're looking at everything. And, our way of ghost hunting back then was just like, look at this, look at this, look at this.
I've been to this place, and you guys must have been losing your minds.
Oh, dude, it was crazy.
It's like an Evil Dead farmhouse. It's terrifying. It's so scary looking.
I mean, they all kind of look like that. We just started to go up the stairs, and I think it was Nick and Bill decided they wanted to go and explore downstairs. We were going to split up. So me and Jason, we went upstairs. Well, we wanted weird stuff to happen.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. So we go upstairs. We're looking around, and all of a sudden we hear Nick and Bill start yelling downstairs. Oh my God, we found something. And we're like, holy shit, what is it? So we run downstairs, and they'd found a litter of kittens.
Oh no!
They found a litter of kittens.
Spooky kittens.
So we spent like half an hour just playing with kittens. They were like farm cats. You know, they were fine. Mom was around, and they were just following us as we walked around the house.
Living in this haunted house.
And then all of a sudden, we felt this cold chill.
Yeah.
And the hair on the kittens' backs poofs up.
Did they turn a little fuzzballs?
They turn into little fuzzballs. You know how cats, when they get scared?
Yeah.
And just starts staring off into the distance at this basement door.
Oh, thank you.
And we're like,
I would leave.
Well, what the is in the basement? And we literally played rock, paper, scissors to see who was going to go down.
God.
And I forget, I think it was Bill that actually ended up going down. Bill goes downstairs, and then all of a sudden, we hear this unbelievable scream happen in the upstairs of this place. I've never heard anything like it.
So where no one was?
Where no one was. No one was upstairs.
Okay.
We were all down because kittens.
Yeah, obviously.
You know what I mean?
Good point. Good point.
Bill comes careening up the stairs, and we hear the house shift. We hear like an actual like timber crack.
Oh my God.
In this house. And
oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about too.
You know exactly.
I've seen it like more recently.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about.
It sounded like a woman's scream, maybe like multiplied a few times. It was strange. It didn't, and I know that like mountain lions and bobcats, they have, this was not that. This sounded like a person screaming.
In the building that you were into.
Yes.
Because it's a house. It's not a mansion or anything. It's like a normal kind of house. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm standing there. I can't tell what's going on because I've got the compass in the palm of my hand, and my hand is like shaking, so it's like spinning around. And we're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So
did you save the kittens?
Well, the kittens were fine. The kittens came outside with us.
Okay.
So we burst outside of the house. We run outside of the house, and before we leave, I take my disposable camera and I go, and I take a couple pictures. Right? I took pictures on the inside. We'll have them on screen if you're watching the video podcast. It's not until a week later when I have those developed at Walmart that I see someone staring out the second story window.
No way.
The second story window, there's a shadow of a person just leaning out. And chills while we're talking about this at school.
Yeah.
So, a couple years later, it's 2003. It's finals week. And we are getting excited because a filmmaker from Washington State, our friend Robbie Newman, wanted to come out and make a documentary with us, following us on our adventures. And one of the places that he had read about on our old Ghost Hunters Inc. website was this place where we got this photo.
I read about it too.
East Step Manor. That's how we know each other.
Yeah.
Our rival ghost hunting websites.
That's why I wanted you to take me to East Step Manor when I first went to Troy.
But you wouldn't go inside.
No. I'm not going in there.
I don't think anyone ever should, and you'll see why.
Yeah, I like to look from the safety of the road. From the safety of inside the car.
Yes.
With the windows rolled up and the doors locked.
Yes. Robbie drives out from Washington, and He's got all of his film gear, all of his equipment, and we're looking for places to go. And he's like, I want to go to East Step Manor. And we're like, no, that place is dangerous. We can't go to East Step Manor. He's like, but it's so good. Don't you know how good that'll be? You've got that photograph. Like, we should go. Like, let's figure out what it was. You know, what was going on? What screamed at you? And we're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You're like, we'll do it.
So we did it.
You did it.
And in the middle of the night, we drive out. And this time we had Bo with us, who was our high school bully. Turned friend.
Yeah, you got to have one of those in your Buffy gang.
He was like one
the guy
of the
that makes
football
fun of you,
team guys,
but secretly wants to be on in your nerd group.
Beat us up, bullied us all the time. But when we asked him to go ghost hunting with us, he almost cried, and he was like, "I've been waiting for you guys to ask me."
I like the detail about Bo too. That like once you guys had converted him to ghost hunter, he was also your security. So he would like if anyone tried to like mess with you guys, he'd be like, "Not these guys."
I mean, I've literally watched him grab people in the hallway who were like giving us a hard time because we were nerds, man. We were dorks. People in school thought we robbed graves. They didn't understand because ghost hunting wasn't a thing.
Yeah, they probably had no... Like, today, I'm sure it's totally different, but back in the day, people literally thought that you were, like... You were absolutely a ghoul. They were like, why are you looking for dead people? That's so weird.
Yeah, no, they literally... Like, I had people... Some of the kids... This was around the time of the Trench Coat Mafia, if you remember all of that. One of the kids who was part of the Trench Coat Mafia came up to us and asked us to go and was disappointed when we told him we didn't rob graves.
Oh God, that's so funny.
People, that's what they thought we did.
Yeah.
So Bo, I've seen him like grab people and be like, only I bully them.
Yeah.
Which was great. So Bo was also driving, we were driving my old panel van that I used to bomb around in, the Beast. And we get there. This whole thing is on film too. Like you can, I mean, maybe we'll put some clips of this. It's not, you shouldn't watch the graveyard shift. It's very embarrassing because one of the things that we do in this particular ghost hunt is we had been told by somebody that ghosts hated nursery rhymes.
Okay.
And so there's a scene of us all singing Mary Had a Little Lamb on the second floor, and it's incredibly embarrassing. Put a clip of it here if you want, Karl.
All right. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, whose fleece was white as snow.
Yeah, so pretty embarrassing stuff.
It's great.
We haven't done that in a long time. Maybe we should try that on a ghost hunt sometime.
Yeah, why not?
We had a Palm Pilot. The Palm Pilot was what we would use to do. It belonged to Bo's dad. He stole it from his dad. And the funny thing is, it actually had the same. It had the same software in it that was running on like the DR60, something like the same mechanics.
Oh, weird. Okay.
So it sounded exactly the same as like the holy grail of the ghost hunting world.
But it was a digital recorder. Is that the idea?
It was a digital recorder because it was a Palm Pilot. It was an old like. You remember Palm Pilots? It's like an iPhone before an iPhone.
Yeah.
You couldn't call on it or anything.
Yeah.
Had like 1 megabyte of memory. So we left that down, and then we decided, all right, let's go see what else is going on. Got some weird photos in this place. And at one point, Robbie, things were winding down, and Robbie, the director, and I went outside for something, and he turns the camera off because he doesn't think anything else is going to happen. And this was a super, super independent movie. You know what the camera curse is. You leave the cameras on all the time. You have to.
Yeah.
But he was trying to preserve battery because we still had more stuff to do that night, and preserve tape. This was back when these things were on tape. And I kid you not, the minute that camera went off, we heard the shriek again. That same shriek. This time, it wasn't in the house. It was outside the house.
Okay.
And you could hear Jason and Nick scream in the house and come running out. And it felt like something out of a movie because as they came out, the second floor caved in that house, and like dust came blasting out of the front of that house.
All the open windows probably.
Oh yeah. And then the front porch, the overhang on the front porch caved in, and like it was like Scooby-Doo. They were running as fast as they could. They jump in the back of the van, and we like tore out of there, and I'm like yelling at Robbie like, turn the camera on, turn the camera on, turn the camera on. He turns the camera on, and this is where the rest of the movie starts. Nick is talking about like he felt the rushing of the wind of the house crashing past his pant legs, but he thought it was a ghost.
I swear to God, I heard footsteps coming right by us. I felt wind on my pant legs.
He thought that it was something that had run past him.
Oh, so he almost felt like it was like motion that went past him.
They were too freaked out and scared. They didn't know that the house had caved in behind them.
Oh my God. Okay.
And then we realized, holy shit. That scream saved their lives.
It was like a warning.
If that scream, that woman's scream had not happened when it did, literally seconds, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
10. Those guys would have been crushed in there.
Yeah, they would have been smushed for sure.
And I wouldn't have my friends Nick and Jason anymore.
That's
crazy. A ghost literally saved their lives.
That's crazy.
We've been back a few times since then, and we cannot stop laughing. I think the last time we were there was several years ago. We were doing an event in my old hometown, and we took you there.
Yeah.
And it was you, me, and Jason. And I remember looking at Jason and saying, you realize that the only reason you're alive today is because a ghost yelled at you.
Because the East Step Manor ghost saved Jason Gowan's life.
The East Step Manor ghost saved him. And you know what his response was? Boy, did he make a bad decision.
Classic
Jason Gowan.
I remember the last time that we were there, the detail that I remember is that one half of the house's wall was completely filled with bees' nests and the whole house was vibrating.
The house vibrated.
It was like, it literally, when you stood next to the house, it sounded like... like a quiet vibrating sound. And I was like, oh my God, it's because this whole wall is filled with a wasp nest or like a bee's nest or something. Yeah.
The other weird thing about this place, after that happened, like the first place we went to was the Pump and Pantry downtown. I say downtown, in downtown Troy, next to the one stoplight. Where we would always fill up at night, and we used to tell the cops what we were up to, like where we were going, because they wouldn't bother us.
Smart.
Like they were older brothers of our friends anyway.
As long as they knew that you weren't doing anything bad, and you told them where you were going.
We told them what we were doing, what we were up to.
They'd tell you where not to go,
of course. And so like that's where like any of the weirdos would hang out in the middle of the night. So we get back there, to refill our Mountain Dew, and we're standing outside, and this is all on tape too. We noticed that something, as we were driving away, had tried to grab the back of the car.
That's right.
And there's these fingerprints, these handprints on the back window in a place that none of us would have been able to touch it.
What's on the window?
Those fingerprints.
They're like fingerprints.
They're not on the
inside. Living over there? No.
Who touched the window?
There's nothing touched in here.
He's
right there on the corner.
Look at
right
here,
great, right here. Right here too.
Did someone grab the window?
No. How? Everybody was in the van.
It was really scary. I still don't know what to make of that to this day.
I mean, it's another one of those cool stories where it is a ghost story. Like it's a small town ghost story about a tragic event that happened in a creepy farmhouse. Like you can't get better than that. That's so good.
I still think about, one of our running theories about things is that most of the time ghosts are trying to give you a message.
Yeah.
They need you to do something.
Yeah.
Not necessarily them. And
that
who
it's
knows?
A catharsis sort of thing.
Sure. Maybe that scream didn't actually exist. Maybe it was like Harvey's smell.
Yeah.
Maybe that scream only existed in our heads because it was trying to tell us, get the fuck out of here, guys. You're gonna die if you stay here. So yeah, as a teenager, my friends' lives were saved by a ghost.
Saved by a ghost. Sounds like a after-school TV show. Starring Jason Gowan and Nick Faust. Saved by a ghost.
Saved by a ghost. That'd be a great show.
It would be. I'd watch the show.
It's funny. That'd be a nice turn from what you normally see on these networks, which is like
murdered by a ghost.
Murdered by a ghost.
Cursed by a ghost.
Yeah.
Animal.
Literally, they had that show.
I know,
they also had like a limited series about like a devil horse or something.
Yeah, leave animals alone, please.
Like that's not going to help anybody.
No.
Yeah, let's more shows about ghosts saving people and helping people. They can still be spooky.
And there's so many stories that people have that are like associated with, their lives being sent in the right direction because of a ghost. So let's focus on the positive, please.
We're going on the road.
Woo woo!
Our all-new Haunted Objects live tour is haunting 30 cities across the country, and we aren't just sharing never-before-seen evidence from our spookiest case files. We're asking you for your help and our craziest paranormal experiment yet.
Come and learn why the infamous Dybbuk box is scarier than the demon it's rumored to imprison.
Tag along with us as we reveal how we broke the curse of the Catskills crone.
And learn the shocking truth about ghosts with an experiment that you'll never forget.
Plus, VIP ticket holders get a very special induction into our very real and very serious secret society.
The Sacred Order of the Haunted Object.
All this and more surprises await you when Haunted Objects Live comes to your town.
But don't wait too long, because tickets are already starting to sell out, and we're not taking this show on the road again.
Visit newkirktour.com for tickets and dates, and we'll see
you on... You gotta wait for me.
You came in like half a second. And we'll see you on the road.
We get a lot of stuff in the mail. 9 times out of 10, we don't experience anything. But that last 10% is where things get really interesting. And occasionally, there's 1% that changes the way that we think about haunted objects.
We bind it to the nails, and we release it.
The Unbinding, now available on Blu-ray, exclusively at planetweird.store.
Well, now that we've said that, let's talk about a couple stories that have turned out very bad, because we've told a couple of them that have pretty cool endings, but there are a few that we were discussing earlier today that have some pretty horrific outcomes.
Do you have some stinkers?
I can think of a really, really good one that didn't go as planned. This one was bad.
Yeah.
People read our website in high school. Like, everybody knew what we were doing. The people who didn't make fun of us for what we did would often come up to us and be like, hey, I heard of this place. I heard of this thing. There was a guy who was looking for a place to go parking with his girlfriend and found this house. They had found this place where they thought it was perfect, because this house, again, middle of nowhere, another one of those places with like everything left in it. This place, though, was weird because it had been left, the stuff in there was from the 90s.
Yeah.
So this guy was there, and because it was in the middle of nowhere, it had like massive weeds, and the trees had grown around the driveway. So you could pull into the driveway and no one would see you. Like, if any car had driven by, it was on a like dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you could hide there, and you could get away with whatever, fancy pants, bang zone shit you were doing.
Yeah. I think we need to call it the bang zone.
The bang zone. While they were getting to it, they happened to look up. I think his girlfriend happened to look up out of the window, and then sees in the second story window 2 people staring at them.
Oh, no. I'm sure she was horrified.
And this place is like, there's nothing there. And immediately, ghosts. And they peel out of there.
Interesting, though, that they were getting to some down and dirty stuff.
That's true. That's a thing.
That is a thing.
That is a thing.
A lot of lovers' lanes have a lot of paranormal activity where people are getting their horn dog on.
It's a great note.
Yeah.
And I mean, we didn't know anything about that back then. We had no clue. Even though most of the places that we used to go and hang out were lovers' lanes. We used to go and we'd like bang on people's windows in like gorilla costumes and stuff while they were parking.
In their bang zone.
In the bang zone.
Greg's a menace of those in the bang zone.
It's true. I mean, I certainly wasn't getting any, so why should anybody else?
Ruiner of bang zones all over Troy, Pennsylvania. Are you going to apologize to all the people of Troy, Pennsylvania whose bang zones you ruined in the early 2000s?
No.
Classic Scorpio.
Because this guy had his bang zone ruined by some ghosts in this haunted house.
Fair enough.
And he comes back to school, and he comes up to us, and he tells us this story, and then he's like, we're like, of course, we want to go check it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for telling us. And he gives us directions, and so we end up going to this place. And again, middle of nowhere, nothing going on out there. We park the car, same place that he was parking with his girlfriend, get out. We can go through like the back door, and everything is still in this place. There's still like food from the 90s in the refrigerators,
just
all the furniture. There's a picture that Bill took of me, my friend Bill, where I'm looking at an old issue of Time magazine with like, I think David Koresh on the cover of it. If that gives you like the time period this place was abandoned.
Wow. Okay.
And our method of ghost hunting was just like, look at this, this is cool. Just like rummaging through stuff and like waiting for something scary to happen. We make our way upstairs and we start to hear people talking and moving around. And we are like, what the fuck? The ghosts are real. And so I had a paper route at the time, and I had a thing of pepper spray. And the pepper spray was what I used in case there was like a dog or something that would come after me. And so I get my pepper spray out. Bill doesn't know what to do. He grabs a big old curtain rod. And then what did somebody else, Nick had something too. Nick had like a knife or something. And there's this great photo that Brandon took.
So good. It's such a good photo.
Because we creep up the stairs and we want to like, oh, it was a camera. We had a camera. And we were getting ready to kick the door open and take a photo of the ghost, right?
Very Ghostbusters. They're like, get her, right?
Absolutely. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
We hadn't really thought things through.
Yeah. That's the thing, though, in those early days when before there were, books that, I guess there were books that you could have read back then. But the thing is, before there was sort of like a known way that people do this, you did kind of have to just sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you just had to try different things.
And we didn't know. I mean, we were reading books by Ed and Lorraine Warren. They don't tell you what the fuck to do.
Yeah, those are the books you don't want to read.
You pull out your crucifix and you yell at it and you command it to leave.
Why
in the
aren't you
name
a
of
white
Jesus.
Christian?
Basically. So we didn't know what the fuck to do. So we pulled out our makeshift weapons and we were getting ready to kick that door open and see what was going on in there. And we're literally, I'm sitting there waiting and we can hear like whispering and stuff.
Oh my God.
Going on in there.
This story as an adult is now absolutely horrifying to me to think about.
I had to have been 17.
Like,
16,
young.
16, 17 at that time.
You look like
Parents
a baby.
had no idea what we were up to, any of us.
No.
I think they stopped trying.
Yeah, they probably didn't want
they probably
to know.
did.
It's probably
my dad has literally told me one time, like, I don't care what you do. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't want people printing your website off and giving it to me at church, which has happened.
Haters.
So we...
Old lady haters. That's who they were.
We swing the door open, and there's nothing in there.
Oh my God,
and we're
you guys
like,
must have lost your minds.
We're like, oh shit.
Ghosts are real.
It's the fucking ghosts. We can't take a picture of them. But we look around the room and we start to notice there's like weird tubes and like beakers and like chemicals and a couple sleeping bags in there. And we're like looking at you like, oh my God. And this shows how dumb we were. We're like, there must be a mad scientist at work out here. We watch too much Buffy, man.
Your sweet little brains.
So innocent, so dumb.
Oh, it's a mad scientist lair.
It's a mad scientist lair. Of course, we live in Sunnydale.
Yeah, we've stumbled across a plan by a mad scientist. You were in his HQ.
And that is when we heard the people in the walls.
The people in the walls?
There was a little trap door on the side. And there were literally people in the walls. And we heard one of them say, should we just get them?
No, you shouldn't get them.
And
my God.
Oh, and we ran out of that place as fast as we could. And it wasn't, and we never went back, obviously. Like, we told the guy, we're like, I don't think those were ghosts that you saw. I think there were people in there. There's a mad scientist who's, like, living in this house.
He's going to get us. And then we ran.
He said they were going to get us. They were in the walls. And, of course, the kid who, like, told us to go there is, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
He's like, what?
This is weirder than a ghost, man.
It means, though, that those people in the walls have been watching teenagers bang it out in cars the whole time.
Oh, I know. Staring in the windows, looking out the window, watching like a bird's eye view.
Ew.
Of course, you can probably guess how this ends.
Yeah, I think I can guess.
Meth lab explosion in the newspaper a few weeks later. The house burns down.
My God, I cannot believe that.
Because it was a meth lab.
Yeah,
my friends and I were ghost hunting in an active meth lab.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad you didn't get murdered.
Time magazine, funny enough, actually called the county I grew up in, Bradford County, Meth Valley.
I mean, I believe it.
Was so bad where I was from that literally it was easy for children to stumble into meth labs and think that they had interrupted a mad science experiment in the Hellmouth.
Well, I mean, it is kind of a mad scientist experiment in the Hellmouth.
Well, I mean, hey, what do you... I mean, we were in the Hellmouth.
You told me this story after you were like a full-grown adult and understood what was going on in this situation.
Right.
But I cannot imagine how cool you guys like, because all I can think about is just the complete onslaught of emotions that you all felt over the period of like what had to have been like 20 seconds, which is we can hear voices. Oh my God, this is a mad scientist lair. Oh my God, he's going to get us. Oh my God, we need to run out of here. Like, you guys must have been so excited and also like completely terrified at the same time.
We were only, I mean, let's be honest, we were just looking for kicks.
Yeah.
We were just kids.
I bet you got your kicks that night.
Oh my God, we had a story to tell forever.
Yeah, that's so scary.
But that also, you know, like most good ghost stories, has a great moral to it, which is... people are always scarier than ghosts.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, we talk about it all the time, that it almost seems like a cliche.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, when you're on a paranormal investigation, most of the time, the only thing that you're really scared about is someone murdering you. Like someone coming out of the dark in some abandoned building you're in or some weird place you're investigating, and, you know, either that or like showing you his wiener.
I mean... people are scarier than ghosts. They're always scarier than ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I've told one from my childhood now.
Yeah.
I've talked about a couple. Why don't you give us one from your childhood?
Yes. So much like Greg, my friends and I were investigating the paranormal in the very early 2000s. Like I said, we started our website, our GeoCities website.
Hell yeah.
Which dates everybody. We started our GeoCities website in February of 2001.
Aww.
So it was a long time ago. And like most people, when you first get interested in the paranormal and when you first get interested in investigating the paranormal, you don't have places to do that. So you just start asking your friends and family, do you guys know of anything like haunted? Do you know, like, do we know somebody who's got a creepy haunted house? Like, you want those stories. And the other thing that's interesting about it, I'm sure many people who are interested in paranormal investigation experience, which is the second you tell someone that you're interested in that, you immediately hear a bunch of great stories. Because people are like, oh, you're into this stuff? Okay, cool.
People want to talk about this stuff.
Yes. And so when you first start and you want to like actually get some experience investigating and being in some of these places, oftentimes it's friends and family who have weird experiences in their homes and they invite you in and you get to kind of spend some time there. So in the early days of the KWPRS, which is what we were called, the Kitchener-Waterloo Paranormal Research Society.
That's a mouthful.
I know. We were also known as the Girly Ghost Hunters.
The Girly Ghost Hunters is a little bit smoother, a little slicker.
Smoother.
But can I tell you, I just had a memory.
Yeah.
You just shot me back in time talking about your website.
Yeah.
Can I tell everyone one of the things that I remember... by the way, I think it's obvious at this point. I always had a crush on Dana. The minute I knew that there was a group of you know, girls our age in Canada who were ghost hunting like we were and were interested in what we were doing, I was like, boom, 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 boom,
like
boom,
those,
boom.
Those cartoon coyotes who get like hearts fly out of their eyes.
This is literally related because what made me do that was do you remember what your logo was at this point?
I don't know if I remember.
It was your butt.
That sounds about right. It was with the K2 in my back pocket.
Your butt in a pair of jeans with a lit up K2 sticking in your back pocket like a cool girl.
Yeah.
And then KWPRS right across the ass.
We were a bunch of baddies.
You were wearing a pair of tight jeans.
We were.
And I was a teenage boy.
Yeah, that's why we were always scared of men showing us their wieners in public. But so this is very early in the Girly Ghost Hunters history. This was, I think, in like 2001.
Yeah.
And maybe 2002. So we were just getting used to doing all this kind of stuff. All of us had always been very interested, but I was really lucky because I have a family member, an aunt and an uncle, who had a great story. They had a great experience and they wanted us to come and investigate. And we thought, okay, we'll do it. But I have to set it up a little bit just so that you understand. So my aunt and uncle own a company. I'm going to omit their names so that they don't get harassed by people online.
I think they do listen to the podcast.
They do listen to the podcast. Shout out aunt and uncle. You know who you are. So they own a company, and they were moving into a bigger building. Their company had expanded. They needed a bigger building, and that was really what was the most important part to them. So they only looked at the physical building factory itself.
Yeah.
And luckily, the property that was being sold had a house on the property, but they never went inside and looked at the house. They were like, whatever, we'll fix it up. We'll make it great. It doesn't matter what it looks like inside. We're buying this property because we need this big extended space for our company. So they never went inside the house once before they bought it. So they buy this place. They go inside the house. It's pretty rough. It needs a lot of work. It's one of those houses that, it's an older house, has had a lot of people kind of come in and out for a while. It was an apartment building, so it's kind of a mess, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so they start immediately, thinking about what they need to do. What are we stripping paint? Are we putting old, stuff back in? They wanted to bring the house back to the original date, like the early kind of farm. It was an old farmhouse, so they wanted to fix it up. And they were sort of prepping that, recognizing, and they started noticing certain details about the house. Like one of the things that they noticed is that under a thin paint, like white paint on the banister going upstairs, they realized that the banister was painted silver.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and there was lots of these weird little details. So they started asking around to the neighbors, and they found out that the house had been an illegal brothel.
Oh my God, that's
for a period of time, according to the neighbors. Again, obviously this is not on the books or anything like that, but there were a lot of things that made it sort of kind of, oh, that's interesting. Like, that someone would make some of these choices. But according to some of the neighbors, the house had for a period of time, I think in the 70s, if I remember correctly, been used as an illegal brothel, kind of gambling, all that good stuff. Yeah. It was a party house.
Yeah.
So they thought, okay, well, that's kind of cool. They're both totally into ghost stuff. So they thought, okay, well, it's going to have a cool history. That's kind of interesting. So they start moving everything in. They spend, a couple days, and they have movers moving their furniture in. Everything's getting moved in, all their stuff. And so they get everything moved in. Boxes are everywhere, and they're unpacking everything. And my uncle is like, where are my suits? He can't find his suits. And he's like, everything's here. Everything's unpacked. A couple weeks go by. Everything's unpacked. He's kind of going through everything. And for his job, he doesn't have to wear a suit. So it's pretty rare that he'd ever need it. But he was just sort of like, I have these nice, expensive suits. Where are they? I can't find them anywhere. And so can't find it. Months go by. I think it was like 6 months or something like that go by. Still can't find the suits. It was the only thing he couldn't find. And they thought, okay, well, maybe it got stuck and left on the moving truck or whatever. A couple suits and garment bags getting lost isn't that big of a deal when you think you're moving your whole house, right?
Right.
So he cannot find these suits. He just sort of gives up. He doesn't really care anymore. But they do start to have weird experiences in the house. And their kids have weird experiences. They're kind of uncomfortable staying there because they can hear voices. It's creepy. They get a little creeped out. And so they ask us to come and investigate. And they asked us to come and investigate. We did it twice. The first time we went through, we did notice that there was some weird stuff. We found a lot of, interesting places where the EMF was very high. It's an old house, so some of the wiring. In the time between our 2 times there visiting, they thought, oh, well, let's go up in the attic because we've never been up there. And they have in this house one of these attics it's not like one of the a cool attic from a movie where you get the stairs, the ladder, you go up. It's spooky. It's one of those boring attics that almost all of us have that are just drywall ceilings and a thing you have to open in a cupboard somewhere and kind of get a ladder and climb up there. So they opened the thing, which had been painted closed.
So it was sealed.
Sealed.
Like bad landlord paint job.
Exactly. You know that feeling when you open a cupboard that has been painted shut and it gets that tacky feeling?
Yeah.
So they pop the tacky feeling, tack on it, and they slide it over, and they look up into the attic, and my uncle's suits are hanging from a wooden beam in the attic.
Oh my God.
Like in the garment bags.
On like hangers?
Hangers, everything.
In the garment bags?
In the garment bags, just hanging from the like a rafter beam, literally just in the attic.
Whoa.
Nothing else is up there. Nothing. It's one of those attics you can't even walk on
like
them.
Like a crawl space kind of deal?
It's full of that like pink insulator itchy shit.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I have a photo of one of the investigations that we did where I popped the attic open and all of the insulator literally fell into my head, like hair and shirt. But I took some photos up there to get an idea. I think I actually have them, so we can probably show them in the episode if you're watching the video.
Dana.
But his suits were hanging in the attic.
Oh, it gave me chills.
It's the scariest story. I mean, I don't know. Like, the interesting thing is, it did have reputation locally, like on that block for being a brothel. Maybe somebody who lived there was like, I like these suits. They're pretty fancy. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind wearing them. Like,
that is wild.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm sure that they've had other experiences since then. I haven't asked them in a couple of years, but every time I went there, it had a creepy vibe. It definitely has a creepy vibe. But it's such a good creepy vibe. Like, it's the best kind of spooky ghost story.
That's such a classic ghost story ending.
It's so perfect.
The suits were hanging in the attic.
They were just hanging up there.
No one could get up there. It was sealed shut.
Like, we had to get like a step ladder. We had to, like I said.
How could that happen?
I have no answer for you. And like, the only answer that any of us could ever come to, and we talked about this together collectively, is like, maybe the movers put them up there because they thought it was like a joke or something. Because it's...
Oh my... And then painted it shut?
I mean, it painted it shut, or like, I don't know, maybe it was humid and it just felt like it was still painted shut, but those suckers were hanging from a beam in the attic of this house for 6 months.
Cool.
It's the scariest. I love that story so much.
That's a good one.
It's just so perfect because it's one of those things. It's like, how do you explain that?
Oh my God.
It's spooky because a ghost did it. That's why.
Do you wish you could have weekly episodes of the Haunted Objects podcast? If so, you're in luck because we just launched Museum Mailbag, a companion show where we dive deep into previous episodes' topics, answer your questions about the unexplained, and reveal the secrets of the universe.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. The only way to get the show is to become a member of the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal. Becoming a member doesn't just support the show, it also gives you access to monthly live-streamed adventures and experiments with us.
And a magical monthly subscription box with live classes about the occult and witchcraft with me.
Plus, you'll get downloadable goodies, exclusive merch, and more.
To join the museum and get your weekly dose of the Haunted Objects podcast and so much more, join us at patreon.com/paramuseum.
Well, we've had a good time telling some ghost stories.
Yep.
I want to thank the listeners for bearing with us. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't want to leave you guys hanging for a week. We wanted to do something fun.
This is fun, too.
This was fun. I had a good time. I do have one more story that I want to tell because this is the Haunted Objects podcast.
Yeah.
We should have a good story about a haunted object that we're not going to necessarily cover on the show sometime.
Let's leave us with a terrifier, huh, Greg?
This one is one of the most terrifying things that either of us have been through. Mm-hmm. We went through this together. This is the most recent story of them all.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
I think 2017, 2018,
something
probably.
Like that. Yeah.
I want you to imagine it's the middle of the night. We are driving back from an event at the Mount Washington Hotel in New Hampshire. We had just gone and done the drive through the White Mountains that Betty and Barney had done. We spent a little time in Salem, just kind of popping around. And we like to drive at night if we can.
Yeah.
I love driving at night. There's hardly anybody on the road. Things are faster. And it just has a good vibe. Mm-hmm. I put on some cool music and we just drive.
Mm-hmm. Listen to some old Art Bell episodes.
Love it. It's the best. And at this point, we were driving a 2006 Scion XB. Yeah. Basically a glorified go-kart.
Yeah.
If you've ever ridden and driven one or owned one.
It's kind of like a Kleenex box with wheels. It was silver and the previous owners put orange pinstripes on it.
Pinstripes on it.
And it's the worst because people always be like, cool pinstripes. And we'd be like,
it weren't ours.
We didn't put us.
So we, the fact that there were already pinstripes on it encouraged us. We have a lot of we at the time had all kinds of bumper stickers. Speaking of Art Bell, do you remember the bumper sticker?
I do remember the bumper sticker.
I had a custom bumper sticker made that said honk if you love Art Bell, or honk if you listen to Art Bell. And I loved it because it was always truck drivers. Truck drivers always beep. And it was always so funny because they're beeping at this tiny little go-kart.
We would always be like, what?
Yeah. We had like
terrified.
Planet Weird stickers, Bigfoot stickers, MUFON stickers. There was all kinds of stuff on the back of this.
It was very obvious that the owners of that car were super weird.
We were weird.
Yeah.
You could make assumptions. Also, almost every time we were going to an event, that thing was loaded to the hilt with like old boxes loaded with haunted objects that we were going to display with the museum. We somehow got like the museum tent and everything.
I don't
in that
even
thing.
understand how it basically was like Mary Poppins carpet bag. Like I don't know how
like
we
a bag
managed.
of holding.
Exactly.
Just things would just keep coming out of it. Chests full of stuff.
Yeah.
The thing about these cars that I think now is like they didn't really have the best security system on them, and we had like priceless artifacts that we were driving around with this thing in. We're nuts, but you know we were young and broke and just doing a weird job. And so like we drove a cheap car.
Yeah.
So we are in the middle of the night. It's probably, I don't know, 1:30, something like that. And we had to pull off to get gas.
Yeah.
So I had to fill up. So I pulled into this little lonely gas station right off of this empty ass highway. I'm pumping gas. I'm just kind of stretching and yawning and trying to decide if I want to go get a snack. And you're sitting in the car. And a guy pulls in and he starts pumping gas. And then he walks over and he says, "Love your bumper sticker." And he's like, "Let's love Art Bell." And we started having a conversation about our love for Coast to Coast AM. We started talking about like Mel's Hole, weird stuff like that.
Look it up if you're
If you wonder what the fuck that means.
Sounds real scary.
It's not a creepy thing.
It's not a bodily hole.
It is a creepy thing. It's not a bodily hole.
It's an earthly hole.
It's an endless pit. Outer Range, I think, was a show on Amazon that was sort of loosely based on Mel's Hole.
Think so.
If you know what that is. So we were talking about our favorite, the guy who flew over Area 51. We're like having conversations about that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked. I always love to meet fellow Art Bell fans, or at least I did back then.
Yeah, not anymore.
Maybe not so much anymore. And he goes, "Wow, you got Bigfoot stickers, you got a MUFON sticker. You guys are like into ghosts and stuff, right? You ghost hunters?" And he's like looking in the back, and he's like, you can see all the chests back there and all the weird stuff back there. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we prefer professional weirdos because we do more stuff than just ghosts. You know, we do all kinds of stuff. And he was like, oh, he's like, okay, that's cool. He's like, you know, you guys should check out the Beast down in Friendsville. And immediately my eyes
that's all Greg needed to hear. The Friendsville Beast? What do you mean?
Friendsville Beast? He's like, there's this red-eyed monster that hangs out in a cemetery. I mean, it's just down the road. It's a little town. There's not many people that live there, but everybody in the town talks about the red-eyed beast that lives in the cemetery. And I'm like, while I'm in the area, can you give me a map, man? And so he like draws this like quick map and kind of shows us where to go and where to look and where people have seen it. And we're always looking for pit stops and cool stuff to do. So I get in the car and I tell you, I'm like, Dana, this guy just like told us this like crazy thing we got to go check out. Let's at least like drive by it, right? It'll break up the trip because we had to drive all the way from there to Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's a haul.
So we're ready for a break. And you were game. You were like, yeah, sure, let's drive by. So we drive out. About half an hour later, we turn into the town of Friendsville. And we looked it up later. There were only like at the time 500 people who lived in this town.
Yeah.
All of them were asleep. There's nothing going on. All the lights were out everywhere. It's desolate.
Yeah.
And the little town itself was just very, very tiny. We had to go like a couple mile or two outside of this town down this like just 2-lane road. And we're driving down and we pass the cemetery on the one side. And I'm like, oh, that's it. So I turn around to get a better view of it so we could park on the side of the road and like take a look.
I remember that, yeah.
And so as I'm parked there on the side of the road, put my flashers on, and we're getting ready to like get out and go walk over to the cemetery, I see behind me these set of headlights come up over the hill. And I was like, oh, I hope they don't like slow down and make this weird. I don't want to have to explain what we're doing out here, whatever. And so we're sitting there and I'm waiting for this car to pass. And instead, it slams straight into us.
Yeah. Yep.
And the whole car just boom, just jerks. And I was like, oh, this is the last thing we need. We're in the middle of where you're freaking out. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, God damn it. And so I get out of the car, not thinking, just the way I would in any situation, where there's a car accident.
There's a lot of these early stories that I look back on now, all these years later, and I'm like, oh my God, we were so naive, first of all.
Oh, for sure.
I think like a lot of people maybe in some situations put themselves into kind of dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And this was one of them, for sure. This is another one of those stories that we tell where it definitely changed how we function.
For sure.
Because it was pretty traumatic.
So Dana, you're freaking out like, holy shit, I can't believe someone hit the car. Is the car okay?
Yeah.
I get out, go to inspect the damage. The bumper's like hanging off and it's like kind of crunched and pushed in.
There's a big scratch on the side of it.
Big, massive scratch. And so like, I'm like fiddling with it and I kind of get it to, it was never the same after that. And kind of punch it back in as much as I can. And again, I'm broke.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through this.
Yeah.
And so I see the damage. It's not bad. I'm like ready to let it go.
Yeah.
Especially because we're in like this weird place, middle of nowhere. And so I think
I remember too that we were afraid that it was our fault. Because we were like, did they hit us by accident, or we parked in a place we shouldn't be? Like, is this weird? Like, I think we immediately were like, this is our fault. And so we were scared that they were going to like try to sue us or something.
And I'm thinking about all the artifacts because like our entire museum collection is like in the back of this, because we just gotten done with an event.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about that, and I look and I see the headlights and it's an old big boat of a car. I think it was a Lincoln. It was massive. It was like an old, 70s, 80s massive boat of a car. And the yellow light of the dome light kicks on, and I can see that there are 4 people in the car. I can't see the driver's guy very well, but I can see that there's 2 guys in the back. And the freakiest thing about this was they looked like twins.
Yeah.
They were 2 guys that had these weird old...
They look like ultra-terrestrials.
Out of time haircuts.
Yeah.
And they were wearing suits.
Like Anton Chigurh haircuts.
Yeah. Yes. Holy perfect.
That's exactly what it was like.
And they had these big, same bushy mustaches. Not quite handlebars, but like big bushy mustaches.
Yeah.
And I could see them really well lit up in the back. And there's just 2 of them. I'm like, what the fuck? And I see the woman in the passenger seat. She has this like Tammy Faye hair that's like touching the roof of the car. And you can see that even in the dim light, she has like makeup caked all over her, and she's old as hell.
They look like people that were written by like the Coen brothers.
They do.
Like they look like people in a Coen brothers movie.
And then the driver gets out, opens the car and gets out, and he starts walking towards me. And it's this thin frame of a man. He's wearing a suit, kind of looked like a southern style minister, and he's got a bolo, like a thin bolo, and this guy was lanky and thin, and I could tell the way he was walking, he was old. He was at least in his 60s, maybe older. And then as he passed through one of the beams, I can see that the left side of his face from like here up is bruised. And one of his eyes is totally bloodshot. That left eye was like bruised too. I don't know what the fuck.
Like something hit him in the face.
It chilled me to the bone.
I mean, the thing is this also, like, you and I now at this point, we're road dogs. We've traveled across this country many times. We've driven through tiny towns, big towns, cities. We've been all over this country. I think there's like 3 states somewhere in the middle that we haven't been to. And so when you do that, you realize, all right, there's weird people in the world. They're out there. They're just doing their thing. And you're like, all right, you do your thing. I felt like I literally was in like a ripping time. Like I was in Fargo.
Oh my God. Even talking about it freaks me out.
I hope they don't listen to this podcast.
Was very scary. And I mean, I'd never seen a group of people that look like this.
No, not in one place.
Like,
especially under these circumstances.
Oh, and again, it's the middle of the night. It's like 2 a.m. by this point.
No way.
Middle of nowhere. There's no street lights anywhere. There's nothing. The only lights are like my tail lights flashing because the flashers are on. and his headlights shining over. And so this guy...
I was not... I also, just for everyone to know, I literally did not leave the car at all. I was in the car the whole time.
So this guy with this massive bruised face, thin, looked like Harry Dean Stanton. Really
It's eerie. A good way to describe him.
And I couldn't... It's the weirdest thing. I don't know how to explain this still, but I got the impression I'd met this guy before.
Ew.
Like he just looked so familiar. And I mean, I'm freaked at this point, and I'm like, please just be cool. Please be cool. And the nicest, calmest voice comes out of him, and he's like, I am so sorry.
Ew.
He's like, I didn't see you there.
Ew.
And he's like, how's the damage? And I was like, it's fine. And I was like, you just got the bumper. That's what bumpers are for, right?
Yeah.
To get bumped.
I can hear you saying that.
and he's just like, I'm so sorry. We should just exchange information. Let me take care of that for you. And I was like, no, there's no need. It's no big deal. Like, this thing's a piece of junk. You know, it's got 100,000 miles on it. Don't worry about it.
Just doing everything you possibly can to just get out of that scenario.
And I was like, you guys look fine. As long as you guys are fine, we're fine. You know, the car runs. It's cosmetic. It's totally cool. He's like, no. I insist. Let me take care of this for you. Get me your information, please, and I'll get you mine. And he goes to the car. And he goes and he's walking back to the car. I walk back in. I sit down in the passenger seat, and I lean over across Dana to pull the information out of the glove box. I'm angry about it. And Dana's like, is it fine? Is the car okay? And I was like kind of manic because I just wanted this to get over with.
Yeah, it was. I remember it like being a very fried moment. Like what was going? Like we were just sort of like, what is going on right now?
I just want to get the out of it.
Yeah.
My fight or flight senses had absolutely kicked in.
Ooh.
Oh my God. And so I'm telling Dana what's going on. I was like, no, it's fine. The car's fine. We'll be able to drive home with it. It's not a big deal. But he's like insisting that we exchange information. He's probably going to nail my ass to the wall.
You're
and
try
I'm in trouble because I was parked on the side of the road. He didn't see me or whatever. And so I'm rummaging through trying to get my information. I'm getting angry because the glove box is a mess and I can't find what I need to find.
Yeah, if just also so you know, the glove box is, imagine every receipt you ever get. It's just jammed in this glove box.
So I'm doing that, and all of a sudden I hear one of the boxes in the back of the car in the Scion start to rattle, and it was a very specific box.
It's so specific because it is a rattling sound that this sounds so random and it's almost hard to explain, but it's a rattling sound that we are like very familiar with what this sound sounds like because it's the only thing that sounds like that.
Little box about this big.
Yeah. And I could pick the sound out if you played a million rattles for me.
A tiny lock that's on the outside of it. At this time period, you know, we were traveling so much, we kept all this stuff locked up, and I would wear the keys.
Yeah, you had it around
on
your
a bracelet on my wrist. They were always there, so I knew where they were. And I hear this rattling on this box. It was the box that held the crone. If you've watched our new film, The Unbinding, you guys have heard the story about the crone. You know how that ends, and you'll know exactly what this box looks like. And you'll see it because we still have it. You'll see it in the recreations. You'll see it in the old footage. You'll see the lock that's on it, and it makes a very specific sound. And that box was going nuts. It was just ka-ding, 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 and it wasn't in a place where it could have done that. The carving, the idol that we called the crone, was in the box, violently shaking. And it was the only thing that made me look into the rearview mirror to look and see what was going on in the back seat. And as I did, I noticed that guy, the Harry Dean Stanton looking motherfucker, and those two weirdos in the back of that car were not looking for their information unless it was in their trunk.
Yeah.
They had gotten up and gone to the back and had popped the trunk. I swear to God,
I'm glad you followed your instincts on this.
These motherfuckers are gonna rob us, kill us, whatever.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I put the pedal to the metal, which
I was like, what?
Dana didn't know what the going on.
Just so that everyone understands, just imagine this is happening. The whole of this is happening, and I'm confused the entire time. I'm like, what is happening? What is going on right now? What is going on?
My car door was still open when I hit the metal.
Yeah, in the Scion,
which by saying that's like 35 miles an hour.
We could have ran away faster.
I mean, these guys were like getting in their trunk. They were driving an old ass car. I've never driven it as fast as I did that day. I put the pedal to the metal. We drove out of there as fast as we could. I mean, we must have driven an hour before we pulled over somewhere much safer in I think West Virginia.
Like the brightest place possible.
Oh yeah, the brightest truck stop. And I mean, the whole time my
it's so scary when something like that happens to you. It's so scary. And I mean, the thing that, like, we've talked about this so many times, and we've told this story to like friends, and most of the time everyone agrees with us. I think after the fact, when we had the wherewithal to think clearer because we were in shock immediately, we think that it could have been the person at the gas station.
I think that the person at the gas station,
because they thought we had a bunch of stuff in the back they could steal.
We had a bunch of antique chests and a bunch of stuff sitting in the back of our car.
And we did. It was like
and we
packed.
Were gullible weirdos.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. We'll go there. That's a great idea, without any protection or anything like that.
And then called somebody and was like, "Hey, these guys are going to be in the middle of nowhere in like half an hour. Here's where they're going to be if you want to rob them and take their shit."
Yeah, I'm sure they have stuff in there.
And God damn, I swear to God,
Crone saved us.
I felt like we were going to die. The Crone, a haunted object.
I know that's what happened.
Saved our lives.
Yeah. So your life and your friends' lives now have been saved multiple times by ghosts.
You want to know the weird part is? Oh my God, you're right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you wonder why I've dedicated my life to such a strange thing, I think I owe him one or two.
Yeah, you can.
I know I owe him more than that, because there's other stories that are somewhat similar where the Crone has been in the box and battled.
Yeah, that definitely. We should tell that story we'll tell it on the museum mailbag.
Yeah, maybe mailbag.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that
time
story.
that happened.
If you're a museum member, we have a companion show that comes out the week after. So if you want haunted objects in your ear holes every single week, sign up to the museum Patreon, patreon.com/paramuseum, and we have a companion show.
But you also get to come on live investigations with us and do all sorts of weird experiments and all sorts of good stuff.
We got a good one coming up on the 28th.
The 28th, we have one of the best.
Everything changes on the 28th.
Yeah, let's do it.
Anyway, that was the time that a haunted object literally saved our lives.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if you've watched The Unbinding, we're even.
I hope so. I mean, yeah, I think maybe we are.
We'll have an episode of the podcast all about the Crone and the Unbinding.
Yes.
Very soon.
Yep.
Look for that. Normally at this point in the show, that's when we say, and that's why the subject of today's episode is a haunted object.
Yeah.
But I think all of these things are fairly obvious to see why they're haunted. Particularly the Crone. A ghost can save your life in more ways than one.
You just have to listen.
You got
to pay attention, and you got to listen.
Sometimes they really are trying to get your attention too. They scream, they rattle in their boxes.
Look at all these lessons that we've learned today with these stories that we've told. Some of which are funny, some of which are sad and scary. But the reality of it is that there's something weird going on, and if you pay enough attention, sometimes it might save your life. Sometimes. Oh my God! Do you see what it's doing? Is this on camera?
It is.
Ghosts are making, just for people at home who don't know, my lamp just tilted forward by itself.
Well, we're going to go and try not to get sick.
Yes.
I guess wish us your best. We will be back in 2 weeks with the episode we had intended to record today. And hopefully all of us will be back to full health.
Well, listen, we've got, it's going to be an extra good episode because we've got an extra week to prep for it. So, hopefully you had some fun with us. Hopefully you got a little spooked out. Hopefully you had a little giggle.
We want to hear your ghost stories.
We want to hear all your ghost stories. We love ghost stories so much, so please share them with us.
Share your ghost stories with us. If you have ones that you think can compete with these, we want to hear them. Put them in the comments.
Please.
Put your ghost stories in the comments. We might read one in Museum Mailbag next week. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thanks for being patient with us while we're dealing with a house full of the infected.
Yeah, we're the Infected Edition Haunted Objects podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and everybody go wash your hands.
We'll see you guys again in 2 weeks.
The Haunted Objects podcast is hosted by Greg and Dana Newkirk, produced by Connor J. Randall, with cinematography and editing by Karl Pfeiffer, and features exclusive artifacts from the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal. To learn more about the artifacts featured in this episode, take part in live interactive experiments, and enjoy exclusive Haunted Objects content, become a museum member at patreon.com/paramuseum. This has been a Planet Weird production for Spectrevision Radio.
Let's hit this hand
myself
sanitizer.
up one more time.
You guys want some hand sanitizer ASMR?
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, that's a different sound.
Oh, I got it in my eye!
Oh, no! Ah! Oh, no. Do you need to wash your eye out?
That's what I get for trying to be funny.
Greg's going to be wearing an eye patch in the next episode.
I wonder how Connor's doing.
We gave him a PlayStation. We left the PlayStation outside of the room. We gave him burritos and what else did we give him?
Well, he's using a new service called Greg Dash.
Yes.
He asked me to deliver things to him, and
Poor
every
Connor.
time I do, I take a picture of it, of the order sitting outside of his bedroom door, and I say, your order's been delivered.
If you guys...
And then he gives me a star rating depending on how
nice.
well I've spoiled him.
That's nice. That's really cute. Also, if you want like a visual image, you can just imagine Connor very sick in a bed in a room that is alien themed.
There's just
so Connor's got a fever.
bug-eyed aliens everywhere staring at him.
Connor's got a fever of 100, and he's surrounded by bug-eyed aliens.
He's staring. I'm gonna have to take a picture and put it in the episode because he's staring at a painting of Crescent from Love and Saucers with her boobs out, holding an alien-headed baby.
She's got Betty bangs. Connor's having a fever dream right now.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy alien shit in that room.